good on that side. Now, then with LDLC's pickups coming through, they have huge on priority, as we've already said. They love to just pick this champion on their second rotation on blue side. So really no surprise seeing that one coming through. And then Yike on a facilitator. You can play through bot lane with the Volibear. Gives you really good style, early game style rather. On the side of Oplon, then they go with the Camille, which is obviously a good matchup into the on. Not so much for the laning phase itself. More when you finally finish the laning phase, you get your 2 items, and you kind of create a late game threat where you have a different win condition with the side lane win condition coming through. But we haven't always see it come through to 100% of the fruition that teams would like, and they're just gonna round out the or start out their second pick phase with a Viego coming through.
Yeah, I was curious as to whether they'd try and go for something like the Olaf again, but since it was banned by LDLC in response to the support targeting, I like the Viego. It'll give you resets in the team fights and hopefully be able to have that same amount of snowball potential that Surenfire brought yesterday. However, we talked about those support banouts, and it leaves you with Braum as your best option. What do you make of that?
I actually think Braum is a fantastic option into this one.
Sick.
You can it's a great champion pickup into Camille, Viego, even also listen, like all of these Braum loves playing against. Like it's some of his bread and butter to be against them. So I think it's a really good adaptation. And you can still play aggressive with Braum and Kalista. Usually Braum is put in a lane where you kind of want to disengage whenever fight comes through. Because you have Kalista that usually goes Hail of Blades, you can get aggressive, just W forward on the minion, hit him with a mortar attack, start stacking up on your passive, and then they just come through with some good old outrange on the Azir. Corgi has already been banned, which means there's pretty no champion that can contest you unless you decide to pick a Sylas into it and play for the laning phase in itself. But they're probably not going to do that, so solid draft from LDLC. I think they got everything they wanted from this one.
I'm scared about this Swain for OPL as well, because like you said, LDLC have such a solid backline right now, and we already saw them tear through a Swain yesterday. Given the fact that they've got the Azir to keep him even further away from the team, as well as Volibear and Ornn to make sure that he really can't do anything, it feels like you're playing, well, technically 3 melee champions, almost 4 melee champions into an Azir and a Kalista and against a Braum, which does not feel good.
I don't think they're too unhappy about it from the side of LDLC once again, as we already kind of established. Laning phase still is fine from the Kalista. They can get aggressive, but I think a lot of what will dominate that is going to be the matchup we talked about earlier. Surenfire, right, versus Iker, Yike rather, whoever really gets down there and get the influence on bot lane can completely like skewer the matchup, because it is an explosive matchup. Whoever finds the kills first usually just wins that, and there's really no way coming back until like real late game. But by that time, LDLC has usually finished up their games. From the mid lane, Swain struggles with pushing in the early levels, but his base damage is really high. So once you finally get like 3 to 5 points in your queue, that's where you start to get really aggressive. But I see at the same time, once again, you mentioned it yourself, long range coming through for him, really annoying to deal with from the poke side. And with the Volibear, you always have to be worried when you're playing an immobile carry. So like playing Swain, where of course you get the ghost, as soon as that gets popped, well, you're a really easy prey for any return gank. And top lane, I mean, there's not too much to say about it. It's On versus Camille. On wants to be active in team fight. Camille wants to be active on the side lane.
We're going to get the chance to see those ganks happening live, see those 2v2s going explosive in just a second. We're going to toss this one over to a short video, and then we'll hit the rift. No video. We're here. We're right on the rift. Oh my god. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. They said no. We're going straight into the action. So, I suppose, welcome, Goldborg, because
I can't say I
we're
mind
starting
it.
this one quick. Yeah, I'm real excited. One of the things that, because we were talking about this sort of mid-2v2 that I wanted to give a little bit of a teaser for early as well, was lane priority between Azir and Swain and how this works out. Because both the champions do like to push and are good at it in their own ways, but wave priority is also so important to your junglers. How will that sort of change throughout this matchup?
Well, I think once again, you're going to see LDLC take charge. Iker on this here should have a little bit of an easier time pushing in. Also, the fact that you have better combat summoner in terms of poking out the Swain in lane also makes it more difficult. So, Pang decided to go for the Conqueror. That's going to have more effectivity when you finally get that level 6 coming through and you have your ultimate to stack it up. But before that, it's really hard proccing, and I don't think you're going to get it procced. So I think for sure that's going to skew it over to Yike and Iker on that side. And yeah, of course, like to dive into your question, that allows them to get aggressive towards counter jungling on Raptor respawns on second clear, but it also allows you to move down towards the bottom lane if you want to influence that matchup that we've already heavily talked about.
Already just a little bit of defensive vision even placed down by OPL in the river, and it's really the deepest that any vision is getting. LDLC don't seem too interested in trying to track Surenfire through the early game, since they'll likely be able to get a little bit of the information later with the push that Ica is able to provide, perhaps warning the Raptors. And speaking of, we're right into it. Minions are crashing, and Ica is going at it with the Shuriman Soldier.
Yeah, so Payne trying to just trade back a little bit. He started out with the never move instead there. If you get the charge, you can stack up your passive. You know, of course, stealing a little bit of HP coming through. Always nice in a matchup where you're going to be the recipient of poke. But unfortunately, for Peng's side, he's not able to dodge it. And which is kind of what we're getting, what we predicted here, right? You get Sand Soldiers, you get to poke with the comment, you got Scorch as well. Ica just got laning roost, Peng got runes for out of lane. This is just how it's supposed to go.
Shout out to Ica as well, because you talked about, trying to take that never move. Ica's actually been positioning really well to be able to both avoid it and, in the case like we just saw, punish when Peng does end up landing it. Well, he's getting the lane priority that we had expected. It's likely going to turn into spotting out Surenfire as ward immediately goes down onto Raptors, and we've got to start worrying about how the rest of the lanes are going to play out now that Yike knows exactly where his counterpart is.
I think it's very interesting. We see Yike actually starting towards the bottom side, moving up towards the top side. Specifically because usually you're not really looking for play up towards Ragnar, but what this can give you instead is that if you go for full clear immediately, or an invade as we're potentially seeing here, could get a little dicey.
This is spotted by Surenfire. A nice smite makes it sort of a net zero for LDLC, but because of the way that the lanes have worked out, nobody else is coming. Yike is not under any threat. It's just a little bit of time wasted for the jungler, and I don't mind it too much, but it's worth noting that that's an opportunity to play that LDLC have now lost and turned into a consolary scuttle crab.
Yeah, I think a lot of good early intel as well from the side of Oplon with a defensive ward, kind of just reading that play to coming through. But that invade was something we've seen for example, Marcoon in the LEC had some success with. Every time you have a prio mid laner, well, you can just make your way in towards the enemy boss. So how is this going to favor them now? Well, they can still take care of their blue side. He's going to be clearing the 3 camps on the top side of the map. He can go for recall, and then he can play towards the bottom side of the map, because the next camps is going to be respawning. That is going to be the Raptors. It is going to be the Crocs. So it's going to favor him positioning it there. But okay, what has happened in this mid lane? Peng, you've become very, very low, buddy.
Is he rough? Oh my god, he's alive. It felt like he should be dead. Absolutely. Ica's push has been relentless. And you talked about this earlier, but the summoner spell just isn't going to work out nearly as well for Peng getting back into lane either. So Ica's going to get a crash, an XP advantage, and that's on top of a lane that was already going well.
You're 100% correct here. Now, what this gives Surenfire instead is that he actually got the full clear out before Yike did on the Volibear, so he's going to be rubber banding. He can experience a little bit, which means that it's not going to matter too much on the second clear, but if we move towards the third and fourth clear, he will have a level advantage, which is of course something to play for when you finally start to play for the level 6s that you get. But it's also the reason why you can see that he was down towards the bottom lane first, kind of influencing how it worked, which let them give some more breathing room from the side of Oplon, but couldn't lead to a kill, unfortunately.
Shout out to one of the ways that LDLC is setting up for their jungler, or they were until now, is sort of allowing the wave to crash and start pushing back into them. The way that Exekick and DOS are playing right now, though, I expect that Yike wants to continue full clearing. Even now with Peng starting to roam down, this Volibear isn't being given a whole lot of room, and is still technically behind in CS. We've got to look for that gank elsewhere, another time, another place.
I 100% agree with you, but you can start to look for aggressive plays on towards Peng as soon as Ica gets that level 6. I think that's for sure a strong point you can start an attack through. It's probably just going to burn Peng's flash. Either way, though, that is something to play for, because as soon as Yike then get level 6 on Volibear, you got a Swain, you can dive on the tower. So it's about setting up for future plays by getting a little more aggressive.
The way that Oplon are warding is really interesting, since they've doubled down on the Raptor ward on the other side as well. It did spot out Yike before that control ward went down, so they know exactly where the Volibear is. There are no camps he can get bot side, and right now it might turn into a dragon, but it does leave this Volibear with relatively few options. Despite the fact that he and Surenfire haven't interacted, Oplon are doing a really good job of telling Yike what he can and cannot do.
Yeah, I think the tracking is really what we're looking at here, right? And as you're saying, the defensive wards are actually really good, or aggressive if you want to call it that, towards the enemy Raptors are really good. But LDLC still have the luxury of prior lane step. Bot lane crashed away first. They got through a reset first, which means they got back to lane first. And also Ike once again continuously have the mid lane pushed in, which makes it very easy for him to make the first move. So it just results in a very early Drake, which is of course going to be very scary because that's potential soul at around those 22 minutes.
Answered by Schernfire on the top side, of course, as we would expect, and something that he didn't do yesterday in terms of actually counter-jungling when he knew that his opponent was on the other side. And now he's gone for this a lot more resource-oriented pathing, and I like that he managed to pick up that extra bit of gold. It's a small advantage for him, a small advantage for LDLC, and economically something that I'm very interested in seeing play out, because when we do see teams that opt out of Dragons, we also often see them prioritize Rift Herald.
But it just feels like even then, you know, because they had that mid lane priority, they get to move up towards the Rift Herald too. So it's a tricky situation. I think the next question we can kind of ask ourselves is then, well, when does Oplon really start to go aggressive with their composition? I think you need to look at the playmaking tools you have, right? Once you hit that level 6, you get access to the Nautilus ultimate, you get access to the Ash Arrow, you can look for cross-map plays, even if no one is there, if you do manage to hit that, and then some strong, solid skirmishing through the Viego. Schönfire is currently level 6. It's that rubber band XP that we talked about, the little advantage that he would get on Yike. But currently, he's not in a position to actually capitalize being ahead of the enemy jungler. And I think that will just end up with a point where Yike is going to clear his red side, he's going to get level 6, and this little window is not going to matter much.
We've all had that feeling in solo queue too, where you're actually doing really well in your lane, right? You're out farming and you get elsewhere and you go, well, it didn't really matter because everything else hasn't gone according to plan. It's still turned into, though, I would say a relatively slow early game because of the way that LDLC have chosen to play this out, prioritizing those dragons the way that Oplon haven't really gone for plays either. As those level 6s do ding, though, Darlik's already hit it, Peng has as well. I want to see if Zykor, or G-Core rather, ends up throwing an arrow up towards this top side to take down Ragnar before more armor starts stacking onto the Ornn, because getting a Camille ahead is really nice.
Yeah, but even then, I still think it's a problem. Like, even if you get the Ornn hit by the Ornn, like, that arrow, it's gonna be a hell of a shot if it hits.
Yeah.
2, I think the damage might not even be there. Yike.
Ooh, it looks like the other team was paying attention to topside. Darlik doesn't get a chance to play League of Legends. Is stunned, knocked up, and taken down. That's not only a top laner, but now the Rift Herald that we were talking about earlier. I think the one thing that Oplon would really have liked in response to that dragon was already difficult to get, now impossible.
Yeah, you get the opposite side of the coin then, which is, oh, well, Ornn may be good at, you know, disrupting ganks or plays being made of him due to tanky stats. Camille's really not. She's a bruiser that doesn't invest on too much XP, and she gets a lot of the sustain through the Divine Sundera. That's not completed yet, so as soon as she gets caught like that, it's just over. And a lot of credit has to go over to DOS as well. Once again, they had the priority from bot lane and immediately moved their support up towards the Rift Herald play before the play could be answered by Twist. So even when there is like just as small as a thing as the bot lane being pushed in, LDLC is making the most out of every moment.
And I mean, now Twist has made use of the small amount of liberty that they've got, but against a Kalista Braum lane where they've so often been pushed in, this Nautilus just really has not been having a good time, and it's going to be pushed in once again if Exekick and DOS get their way. Looks like G-Core's feeling a little bit more confident. We should see OPL hitting a really nice reset here to get themselves a little bit more, again, comfortable in this laning phase. Maybe a small item advantage for G-Core, but as we've got the Rift Herald, I think that's where we've got to be looking next. Where is Yike going to be? Because that is who the plays are made around.
I think you can even just deploy it in the mid lane here if you want to. It's going to be an extra pressure point with the Infernal Drake spawns in 1 minute. It's going to be played in go over to Ica, and it makes the turret very low, so you can just come around with another play again, take the turret down, and once you have the mid lane pushed in, it gets you access to all the other side lanes. Now that's just one of many options. I think they can go for the bot lane too. The only thing we never want to see them do with the Rift Herald is use it on the top side. Ornn goes through very low econ items, and there's really no way to, or no reason rather, to give him extra gold when you could give it to your carries like the Kalista or Nasir instead.
Shouting out Ragnar as well. I mean, he's already basically done the work of one Rift Herald, getting the turret down to just 2 plates left. There's a lot of gold going into this Ornn off of that top side play that doesn't necessarily show up in the kills, is just something that is sort of standing gold, at least until we hit 4 minutes from now. With that next dragon coming up, though, we haven't seen Ripped Herald dropped just yet, but Yike has yet to really contribute to the setup. LDLC, perhaps a little bit behind the play here, should still be able to secure it.
Yeah, that's the thing. They have to control the vision run currently now. They have to fight for it. They're looking for Ica, but they won't find him. And that's just how the dance is going to go back and forth. Bot lane can get pushed in now. That allows DOS to get another... What happened in the top lane?
What?
Yeah, so we drafted Camille to win side lane. Lose lane. Low unfortunate.
It's okay, guys. We have scaling. It's for later, right? At this point, though, LDLC can get their cake and eat it, too. They can contest this Infernal, and Yike's likely going to try and go for it. Doesn't get into the pit in time, instead stunned, but DOS hitting a big knock-up. Now gives so much space for LDLC to run around the rest of OPL. Peng is forced to flash away over the wall, explodes, and not in the good way. Well, LDLC end up collecting 2 kills in trade for that Infernal. I'd say very, very worthwhile.
Is it only going to be 2 kills?
Shortfire Heartbreaker still on like 1 HP. Man, I can't believe he's alive.
On a positive note, Oplon did pick up the Drake. On a more negative note, you're now 4k behind 12 minutes into the game. And as you said, it was a very slow early game from the likes of LDLC, but this is where we usually start seeing them excel. Around the 14-minute mark, that's where they'll exponentially grow their gold lead. They'll find pickups, they get the first turrets, and they start rotating the members around. In this case, it's going to be Exakick and DOS to the rest of the map now to just further the advantage now with the bot lane who you can push in long and get extra response time before the minion wave pushes back to you.
It's going to be really nice for them. I think, oh, Lord, Twist starting off a fight is going to make this a little bit more difficult. Exakick could still do work here. That rend is going to be massive, and Yike still is alive. Twist going low right now. Will be taken down by 1 more auto. Exakick could do this, gets the reset on the Kalista, but it's not enough, as G-Core ends up collecting that shutdown, and thank God he did.
Yes, you're right about that. It's a 2-for-2 shutdown going over to C-Core, so if you just isolate that play, it is going to be worth it for Oplon. But then you take into account now that, 4 kills on Exakick, you're never going to be happy about that. Peng, no flash. Let's see how this plays out.
Not even a ghost to his name. It's going to get stunned up in the Demonic Ascension. Still gets knocked up underneath the turret, but the healing to the Swain is pretty darn big until, of course, Ica takes him down. Darlick now the one that goes low underneath the tower. Twist can't do a whole lot, and nobody else is coming to the party. So we're gonna get to see LDLC take a little bit of a chill pill, hopefully take a bit of a reset, and then really make this 6,000 gold advantage sting.
Relentless once again from LDLC. Ragnar has top lane priority due to the fact that, he's able to solo kill Camille on side, apparently. That gives you some extra time to move into the mid lane. Finds the long range ultimate, Peng no ultimate, or, well, rather no ghost or flash. He did have that ultimate. What really made it awkward from LDLC in that play was the fact that they couldn't really proc the Winter's Bite from DOS due to the fact that Ica couldn't auto-attack them. He was attacking with the soldiers, and they don't proc that passive. So it made Peng very slippery despite they had so much CC.
Yeah, and now that he's got almost the ghost back up, it will hopefully make him a little bit harder to deal with in the next team fight. But the Leandries and Oblivion Orb picked up by Ica make that so much harder, especially the Oblivion Orb. We were talking about Swain's healing moments ago, and this is something that makes that so much less effective.
It's an early pickup coming through from Ica, but I think it just speaks to, they know what they're dealing with. They don't mind expanding some extra gold into Ica. Usually, we don't like seeing Morellos. It's not very cost efficient. It's better seeing the Immortal Reminder coming through from AD carries, but I understand as well when you have a Kalista, it's very essential that you get that Rage Blade going. So just having the Oblivion Orb, the extra gold from Ica, I can see the point of view coming through. Second Herald, Aspen started up, and we talked about the first Herald. It was never really used around the mid lane, but this one can just get used for any tier 2 turret if you really want to. Remember, the bottom lane and top lane tier 2 turrets are worth 600 gold shared. So that's quite a lot of money that you can pick up, and there's really no need to use it in the mid lane since the turret is so low already.
Nice side steps from Ica as well, sort of one-man arming the mid lane. Well, we had Exakick one-man arming the bot lane, now rotating up towards this mid lane. It seems that LDLC are no longer interested in playing OPL's game and continuing to farm up these side waves, instead forcing the issue in this mid lane, and OPL not responding just means that another tower is going to go down, maybe even getting a second charge.
Yeah, I think they're just gonna go. They got the intel down towards the bottom side. Members were still around. Mid lane turret was low, as we already discussed, but they just want to open up this one. They don't care about the extra gold on the side. They care about the map pressure they might gain from this.
What map pressure that is now assured as well, since 2 of these towers in the mid lane fall. LDLC are going on the hunt, looking for Darlik as well. The Ornhorn is in, the Kalista ult is out. Exakick gets flashed on by Surenfire, but this Kalista is still okay, and flashing away, Exakick is still alive and tearing through OPL. A double kill to Exa, and though the hook, though the never move comes in from Peng to end that, it's still a really nice look from LDLC, finishing off 5 members for the price of 1.
That's the relentless LDLC that we all know and love here. We've reached the 14-minute mark, turn 1 towards the 16. You open mid lane completely, you find an effective team fight, and their members are just so far ahead, they show up with their mechanical display at the same time. Exake, immaculate kiting on the Kalista, and Ica finding a superb re-engage rather, with the Emperor survive afterwards. Just all in all beautiful, and they don't drop a single member.
That was really, really cool to watch. The way that LDLC grouped around Exakick, knowing that, as you said earlier, where this Kalista is where we can bully people. Pulling them up from the bot lane, they took down 2 mid lane towers, and now look at that, Dragon is on the horizon as well. We're only 2.5 minutes away from Baron, and we've got to start considering how on earth Oplon could stop that if they can even get into their topside jungle.
I mean, that's the big problem. I think Oplon, they're 9k behind. They're 17 minutes into the game. Let's just look at the facts here. They need a miracle to come back, to be quite honest with you. And that miracle also relies on LDLC making a mistake, because they don't own much here. They can get a few objective bounties. They can try and find their picks, but they need to not just find one. Probably 3 or 4 picks in a row without them losing too much of the map. So while they are trading effectively currently with what you're seeing by going in, counter jungling the blue side, set yourself up for a topside pick with Dalek, that's time and resources invested, and LDLC can now punish on the bottom side of the map and still continue their relentless aggression.
And perhaps one of the other things that we can look at when we consider this game from Oplon's point of view as well is that you're going up against the #1 team. A victory is never expected, but you can still find small victories in the way that you've been able to play out the game. They came off the upset yesterday, and I'd like to sort of check in with you, Gold, about how they've managed to translate that into today. What are the small victories against the #1 team they've been able to find, even if the game is largely slipping away from them?
I mean, I think they have really good reads in terms of jungle tracking in the early game. Fighting Yike, kind of persuading the plays that was going to come through. He didn't get much time to influence the lanes, kind of turned it into a jungle matchup between each other. The problem for them then arises that they didn't really have prior lanes to play for, which means that LDLC was still able to keep the Drake stacking going. They were still able to get all the neutral objectives with the Rift Herald on top side. Yes, they get one good Drake setup, I'd actually give them, but they don't win the team fight afterwards, and that's really the big breaking point for them too. So I think Oplon, small signs of life from them in the early game, but as soon as we get further than that, this game is all LDLC, and then once again, all the credit to currently the best team we have in France.
Yeah, Yike is unafraid, as the remainder of LDLC should be. Almost 1v3 contesting the vision, but his team seconds away is able to clear that out. We're still waiting for this Baron pickup, and LDLC do get 2 for the price of 1 here, being able to both set up vision on the top side to keep their bot lane, or rather top lane now, safe, and as well set up this big purple worm that is just now spawned. You want to take away this top lane tier 2, and it should be easy pickings for them. I just wonder whether they do it before or after.
I think it's going to be before here. You can see Ica's hovering in the mid lane. He can easily move up towards the top side as he is right now, going through the jungle. Ragnar's moving up as well at the same time. I think they might just be looking at it here.
Shout out to Ica for picking up the Mejais on the Azir as well. Knows that he's not going to die. It is a confidence play and one that is well-deserved. Glacial Fisher going down. Twist doesn't get to play League of Legends, and Fire is left only being able to disengage. DOS does take a lot of damage, but nobody's able to finish off that kill. No resets for the Viego. Ica goes golden. Kick does get Hextech ultimatumed and shut down as Darlik brings OPL right back into this game, punishing LDLC and finally winning OPL a team fight.
That's big. That could be Baron right here. Jungler still alive from the side of Schönfire. You have the damage in C-Core. You got Dalek as well on the Camille. Big overextension from Yike, and the rest of LDLC has now potentially cost them a Baron.
Darlik is still on the hunt, but what a team fight from this Camille that has been silent, even sometimes screaming in agony up in this top side. Now finally making their presence known, and not in the way that we had expected, especially given that when you pick Camille into Ornn, Ornn's strength is meant to be the team fights.
I think it was just really good isolation of picks, and a lot of credit goes to Dalek as well, who manages to just split open the entire team fight when he comes in with the Hectic ultimatum on Exakick. And as soon as Exakick is taken down, Iker is going for a play where he's not doing damage from long range. He's more so diving in to try and get a nice setup for his team. Problem is, the setup that you're trying to play for has already died in Exakick, and that was kind of why this situation got so disastrous for them. But honestly, Oplon, what a beautiful team fight they find themselves. Once again, great credit to Dalek.
At this point, Peng getting engaged on those might spell the end of the Baron power play, as it's going to go right back into the negatives very shortly. We do have the next Dragon up, which will buy you a little bit of reprieve for Oplon, but Schönfire already getting engaged on, and Ica Shurima shuffling the support as Twist gets yeeted 50 meters into the backline, is now running towards the Dragon the opposite direction and leading LDLC right to where they want to go, picking up another objective and an extra 300 gold.
Well, let's see. It's going to be a long extended change. Hook shot with the anchor, rather.
The Great Escape? It could be.
I mean, certainly we're just looking at Spider Nautilus right now. Escape, that's...
Get it!
Okay, he continues, but where do you go now?
No, this is, you know what? A lot of time bought. I think that we're going to count that as another small victory, alright? We had the jungle tracking, we had the big team fight in the Baron play, and now we've got Spider-Man Twist.
Well, I can confirm my co-caster is incredibly high in copium here. That is 100% sure. Extra time bot. They got a wolf cam. Yeah, I guess that certainly is something. But in the exchange, they still lost. Cloud Drake has now put LDLC on Soul Point. Still lost Peng and their support, of course. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I can definitely tell, you know, you're a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. They basically won. It's just scaling. Yeah.
It's about the small victories, you know.
Exactly. You can already tell what kind of person I am in solo queue as well. It is infuriating. But with OPL being able to hit the rift for the moment, since all of LDLC have reset, the best they can do for now is just set up a little bit of vision, or rather clear out a lot of it that LDLC set up, as LDLC prepare for what should be a mortal blow very soon.
Yeah, I mean, luckily now they might have some, at least momentum going into the next fight. They might have some hope as well, because they actually managed to pick that topside fight. They need to be able to replicate that. But once again, problem was that, for LDLC rather, that they became so split due to Exakick just being in the middle of the fight, but also the fact that Ike wasn't really part of a front to back with the Azir. It was more so just diving in there. And through these next fight, as a Seer, you usually want to save that Emperor survive for either the best disengage time, where you can just completely disrupt Dalek when he's trying to come through with a Hectic ultimatum. He lands it and then you shove him out. Or you can use it at the last minute of the fight, where you know you can dash in, they're low enough. The last amount of CC will just be the, you know, last drop of water that just makes the glass overflow. So I think that LDLC, they're still in a comfortable position. Oplon, they're still very far behind. They still have the objective bounties going for them.
One of the things that I've been looking at from LDLC as well, and as much as we've expected them to win this game, is how cleanly they can do it. And while they did lose the Baron there, it is a momentary setback, and one that'll hit even the best teams, as LDLC are. But I am curious, in the time in between that Baron going down and the next one, only 2 minutes away, what they're actually going to be able to get, because they haven't made a play for the base, because their side lane is really non-existent. They haven't been able to crack anything. Is this the best play for them, or should they be looking for more aggressive opportunities?
I think they can look now potentially if they want to, just due to the fact that one of the reasons they slowed down the games was that they were waiting for item power spikes, and Ica just finished off the Rapidon Steph cap. For the longest time ever, he had now been sitting on 2 of the needlessly large rods. So finally he got some extra power coming through from the LDLC mid laner. But you have a composition that really thrives as well when the opponent is walking into you, because you can turn on them with the Ornhorn, with Yike as well on the Volibear, and the extra range you get from Ica with the damage, that you don't really need to look for a play right now. You're actually more prompt to failure if you just completely throw everything at them on the tower, like they did on the top side earlier. So I think for sure from LDLC, they need to wait for an objective, or they need to wait for someone to make a mistake and catch up guard. Like potentially Darling now.
Yeah, you're looking for a mistake being made. Darlik has very few options, and after being stunned up, I guess we're gonna buy time, because let's see if we can escape this one in much the same way that Twist did earlier. Stun, knock up makes that a no-way Jose, and OPL lose another member, maybe making it a second, as Twist does manage to buy a little bit of distance, even flashing away to save his life. LDLC. DOS goes golden in the front lines. Plenty of time bought from them. OPL, though, still largely by using, I will say, all of their summoners have managed to avoid a second person going down, as that would almost certainly end the game. But LDLC have got what they came for now, a pick into a destruction of the base. That's at least one inhibitor that you're going to be missing. And keep in mind, Baron is up in 30 seconds.
It is indeed. I wonder if they want to get the reset timers through beforehand. Looks like they want to at the same time. Reset timers, or death timers rather, from Darlik is very short, so there is a moment where Oplon can actually dictate where they want to get vision. They can try and set up around the Baron. The problem is that if they heavily focus on the Baron area, LDLC is just going to be taking the soul, and it's going to be difficult for Oplon to commit to a play where they just say, we have to commit on the Baron right now. We'll just have to go on it while they're on reset timers. So that's why you can see they've expanded now their vision control on the top side, but they're not in a position to start up the objective.
And one of the things that normally goes in my copium tank as well when I'm thinking about scaling teams is the orange scaling, and in this case it is just not working out in my favor, because Ragnar is on the team that is already winning and has started to add some serious oomph to his teammates' items. Ica receiving the most recent update, and if we're looking at the Azir, I don't think he needed any help to be dealing additional damage either. So soloing the dragon now, probably turning into a Baron later. This is good.
I think like they're just going to be chilling. They can disrupt the vision control that Oplon had just praised on the top side of the map. Meanwhile, Ica, as you said, taking care of the Drake. It's looking good for LDLC. Oplon in a dark pit of desperation, so to say.
Okay, you gotta kill one person. That's the next goal that I'm looking for. Take a team fight. If it's Exekick, it's basically a victory. So that's my goal for Oplon at the moment. LDLC, of course, have other things in mind. They've started up that Baron that we knew they were going to. It is on vision, but at this point, Oplon can't do much about it.
Don't know how easy you made it by picking Exekick. That does have a stopwatch as well. Really unfair. When damage should just come through. Twist. Desperation might be now from Oplon.
All right, well, Darlik's going to go for it. He won the team fight last time, but there goes the Shurima Shuffle, and it does exactly what you said it would. Kicking out the front line, buying so much space for LDLC, acing a team fight, and now it's a game in their hands.
Just like that, they create an entire bouncy castle around the Baron pit on ultimate. Ica, this knock-up as well coming through from the DOS being thrown with the Kalista ultimate. This should just be it. There's nothing stopping them. It's been a clean, it's been calculated. Only one mistake on the top side from LDLC, but outside of that, they remain dominant.
It was and is still the best team of the LFL in 2022. Exekick secures the final hit, and they are now gone 11-0. What a game from LDLC to be able to do it as well. Oplon, unfortunate for them. Small victories. Small victories.
I think we got the victory for them against K-Corp, and already there, I think they exceeded our expectations.